Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. Checking my calendar, and the day is Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023. We are here for the monthly voting meeting of the Athens-Clarke County Mayor and Commission. If business has not been concluded by 8:15, we will have a 15-minute break. We want to see if we get done by then. We'll go ahead and begin with a roll call from our clerk.
Davenport. Glink.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Wright.
Present.
Fisher. Here. Huell.
Here.
Culpepper.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Thornton.
Here.
Hamby.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, given our resolution of earlier this year, we'll begin our meeting with our civility pledge. And we remind ourselves that the way we govern ourselves is often as important as the positions we take. Our collective decisions will be better when differing views have had the opportunity to be fully vetted and considered. All people have the right to be treated with respect, courtesy, and openness. We value all input. We commit to conduct ourselves at all times with civility and courtesy to each other. So, first order of business, as always this time of the month, is approval of recent meeting minutes. And so I'd entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of meetings of Tuesday, April 4th, Tuesday, April 11th, Tuesday, April 18th, minutes from the work session of Tuesday, April 11th, and minutes from the agenda setting session of Tuesday, April 18th.
I'll move to adopt those minutes with the one tiny amendment to note that our Mayor Gertz was absent from the April 4th meeting. Having a great time, I assume.
He was indeed. All right, with that amendment.
I second it, Mayor.
Got a motion. I've got a motion from Commissioner Huell, second from Commissioner Thornton. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Sarah, are there any written communications tonight?
There are not.
All right, perfect. All right. We are going to have several opportunities for public input. We're going to have separate and unique opportunities on each of the four planning and zoning items. We have an opportunity regarding the consent agenda, an opportunity regarding old and new business, and as always, at the conclusion of tonight's meeting, there's an opportunity for 3 minutes of input on any item that's not on tonight's agenda. With a brief exception that I'll explain in a minute, public input is for a 3-minute opportunity. The light in front of Clerk George's desk is going to turn green when you begin speaking, yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining, and red when your time has concluded. And I will thank you for your comments and ask you to have a seat. Only exception to that is the opportunity for a 10-minute segment of time on a planning and zoning item. And we do have one of those who I'll call up to the podium regarding the Classic Road zoning item. So, first order of business is item 1. And this regards the planning and zoning item at 515 Olympic Drive. Is there anyone here to speak to this item tonight? Good evening.
Good evening. David Ellison on behalf of the applicant. We're asking that you please approve our application tonight. I'm sure you're all familiar with this particular set of properties. There's just a few items we want to emphasize as you consider this application. We understand that this is currently zoned for EI, but we'd ask that you please keep in mind that this is a difficult site for industrial uses. The most important, one of the aspects is due to the challenges of the topography. If you look at a topo on Q Public, you can see there are up to 60-foot changes in grade throughout this property. Trail Creek also bisects this property, and portions are in a floodplain. And so you think about an industrial user trying to put a large warehouse across that entire property, it's just simply not possible. That is why this property has remained vacant over the past so many years. On the other hand, a residential user like our client can use these streams as an amenity and place residences throughout the property and use the topography to their advantage. Also ask that you please approve this because it achieves a number of important goals under the comprehensive plan, including the update you all will be considering tonight. If it provides additional housing for the community. There's a shortage of housing in this community. In particular, there's not much available for RM left in Athens-Clarke County. And so we believe that one of the best ways to decrease the cost of housing is to add additional inventory. This is also going to increase the variety of housing types that are available. This is not going to be student housing. This is going to be serving a segment of the market that is currently not served. It's our hope it's going to be serving the jobs in the surrounding area. Since this came through the last time, there have been a number of job announcements for the community, including 1,700 jobs right around the corner from here. And so we'd ask that if the county is going to provide public incentives to attract employers to the community, that this county provide housing for these employees. And so we believe this just makes perfect sense. And the final point I want to bring to your attention is that I know the agenda setting session, we offered an affordability component. We had authority to present that just before the agenda setting session, so staff may not have had the opportunity to review that carefully. But essentially, we're looking at offering about 10% of the units being rented to the 60% AMI range. This property does not fit within the inclusionary zoning ordinance that's on the books. We don't need the bonuses, but we're willing to provide this, and we're willing to work with staff over the next 30 days if we need a table to get to that point. But we ask that you please take a fresh look at this site. We understand there are concerns, but at the end of the day, we believe it satisfies a number of concerns and objectives of the comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Ellison. Is there anyone else here to speak to this item tonight? Evening.
Hi, I'm Grant Whitworth. I'm here to speak in favor of this project for a number of reasons, a lot of which David had just spoken to. But, this site in particular, up until recently, I don't know what exact year it was, but this site the future land use plan was for multifamily here. This site had an RM2 zoning on it for a PD, and that was changed very recently. The site does have challenges. We as Whitworth Land Corporation represent, I would say, 90% of the property owners in the Athena Industrial Park. We do not feel that this encroaches on the industrial area. Another thing that really hasn't been spoken about is the county has recently purchased all of the adjacent properties behind the post office here. So by doing that, there really is no encroachment. Our real industrial park starts at the top of the hill. If you're familiar with the area, you pass the post office, and once you start getting up the hill, Carrier's on the right. So that is truly where we kick in with our industrial properties. Now, recently, which we're very excited about, we'd recently rezoned the Christian track, where now we have Miser coming in. That doesn't include, that's 1,700 jobs. We have RWDC with another 250. Boehringer Ingelheim has got another 100 or so in this plant. That's 2,000 jobs that are coming now, that are great, high-paying jobs that this county has worked hard to bring here. We need housing. And I don't know, I was on the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. I don't know many places we can put it. The topography here is very challenging. There's a creek, Trail Creek, which runs through our park system, which I don't think we want industry on top of that creek. I think that there's a lot of reasons why this makes sense. And it was approved previously on this site as a residential multifamily property. So with those reasons, I'm probably missing a few things, but we strongly support this because we truly need it. We have to have bodies to fill these jobs that are coming, and we already have a shortage as it is. This product type actually fits that need. This is for families. This is for people that are young professionals. This is a project that we support, and I hope you'll do the same. Happy to answer any questions if there's anything there. Thanks,
Mr. Whitworth. Is there anyone else here to speak to the Olympic Drive project? All right, would you like to read an ordinance, Attorney Drake?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there's two. I'll read them both. The first is the amendment to the official future land use map, an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to amending the official future land use map of Athens-Clarke County by changing the designation on approximately 65.89 acres of land located at 505 and 515 Olympic Drive from employment center to mixed-density residential and for the purposes. And the second ordinance connected with this item is an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to rezoning two parcels of land comprising approximately 65.89 acres located at 505 and 515 Olympic Drive from EI Employment Industrial and I industrial zoning with conditions to RM2 mixed density residential -2 and for other purposes.
Thanks, Attorney Drake, I appreciate it. And Commissioner Thornton, this is in District 9. Would you like to place a motion on the floor?
I am not going to make a motion to approve this. I'm kind of surprised a little bit at the presentation tonight. I thought after a lot of conversation, we were going to hold this. But I need to reach out to Brad for 1 minute. The applicant has added 20% AMI units. It was not presented to us at the last meeting. I think the attorney mentioned it to us. Changing that plan, adding the AMI, does that have to go back through planning?
It would not have to go back through planning if it was attached as a commission-defined option from a commissioner. Now, what I would tell you this evening is that, I mean, what the breadth of what I know about their proposal is what we've heard tonight in an agenda setting, because I wrote down 10% at 60 is what it was. But in terms of details, what that means, for how long, all of those things, we've not seen anything. So if there was an interest in pursuing that, my recommendation to you would be to at least hold it. We've not held this. We held Newton Bridge, we didn't hold this one. So you could hold it until your next meeting, and then, you know, they could present that information. If a commissioner's not interested in making the CDO in June, then there's no reason to hold it. If they are, then we would work with that commissioner and provide them with the information needed to get them to a comfort level as to whether or not they want to support it or not.
Thank you. And it really is kind of confusing since it came up at the last meeting, and Brad pretty much said what he's saying tonight, that the applicant did not even look into what it would take to redo this proposal with the new AMI. Now, I am willing, if the applicant is interested in holding it for 30 days, I can make that recommendation. That is totally up to you. But if you think this is a dead end, we'll vote tonight without my recommendation.
Would you like the applicant to
Yes.
respond to their interest in a
Could you
poll for a
please come
cycle?
up, sir?
Mr.
Sir.
Ellison. So, Mr. Ellison, the question is, would your client be interested in holding this for a month for consideration with some specified language attached next month?
Yeah, we'd be happy to. I mean, I know we got this kind of late in the game. It took a lot of going up the ladder and down the ladder to get to y'all. Happy to work with staff and the appropriate departments to clarify those details.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mayor, I will make a motion to hold this for 30 days, get the language correct, and it will also give me some opportunity to talk to some other folk and some more of my colleagues.
Just could you slightly amend your motion
Oh,
to
no,
hold to the June voting meeting? Because
To
I think
the
it's a
Ju-
couple more
yes.
than 30 days.
Everything I just said to the June voting meeting.
I'll second that.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Thornton, second from Commissioner Wright. I'll make myself a note here. Okay. Commissioner Wright, as seconder, any follow-up?
Oh, no, I'm ready to hold and get those details ironed out.
Okay. Commissioner Link.
Yeah, I'm fine with the hold. I just want to say that, you know, I'm in general reluctant to approve a rezoning of a big piece of property like this in light of the fact that we're undergoing our land use planning process over the next year or so, and we have an opportunity to lay down some zoning that will get us some more ideal development in this part of town and other parts of town that are pretty ideal for additional residential development. You know, I'd really like to see more mixed-use, large-scale subdivision development with some commercial up front that'll give the folks who live there some amenities in addition to like a pool and clubhouse, more of a commercial stimulation in that part of town. So, and I'd like to see more diverse housing. You know, I really like the idea of townhomes. But, you know, I'd love to see, you know, some cottage court style in there too, to appeal to a broader spectrum of the housing needs in our community.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anyone else before I return to Commissioner Thornton?
Yes. I I think that when we think about a property like this and the intent to build housing, that we should at least have conversations with the community that lives within where you want to build. And that's just not for you, but for all developers. Because if you took the time to talk to us, you would see that we wouldn't want townhouses. We are for home ownership and land ownership. In our communities, there are more apartments than there are houses. And the houses that we do have are now being sold off from under us, and a lot of the residents within our community is being displaced. So when you go back to the drawing board, perhaps speak to someone that lives within the area and not just Trail Creek, but maybe Nelliby Avenue or Spring Valley. That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Thornton?
I tell you, it's about planning. You plan something and it goes totally left. I wasn't even expecting all this tonight, but I'm prepared. I think the land use idea is very pertinent, and maybe we should look at what we need to do as a whole and not just with this one proposal as far as land use is concerned. Because every developer that's going to come before us now are going to be facing the fact that we're in the middle of a land use process, every developer. So we need to either figure out a way to put the brakes on it until we can get some updated information on our land, but we shouldn't be penalizing folk because we're in the process. My other thing is I agree totally with Commissioner Taylor. A lot of times developers feel that we understand, or the average person understands land development, housing, economic development, and how it works. The average person is trying to go to work every day, take care of their kids and their family. And if we as commissioners and those who are benefiting and providing housing don't educate folk, then we're always going to come to this, this gap. So with that being said, I hope that the developers will work with commissioners, not just me, any commissioner that wants to be a part of this conversation, and the residents in that area. And let's see if we can do what we say we want to do and have some housing that is more than needed in this community.
Thanks, Commissioner. All right, there's a motion and a second on the floor to hold this item until the June voting meeting. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so we'll see this again in June. All right, second item concerns the Classic Road parcels, and we do have a request for a 10-minute opportunity, and so I'm going to ask Blake Underwood to step up to the mic, who signed up for the 10 minutes. Evening.
Good evening. Blake Underwood with the applicant. I've reached out to all of you and spoke to most of you. One thing I'll say is that pretty much, well, really everybody, I haven't heard anybody say that this particular project or this particular parcel, this area as a whole, is not going residential and is not a prime area for residential. You know, we've gotten a lot of feedback. We've taken all the feedback from prior applicants, from our time through the Planning Commission, through your feedback, through the process, and you know, we've come up with this plan that we presented to you guys, you know, already, and what we're going to ask that you hold this item till the next mayor and commission meeting, which is, you know, June 6th. We do want to hold it because we would like to, you know, work with the district commissioner to work in a few items from the agenda setting meeting that y'all brought up, to see if we can incorporate that and work with the planning department of how to write in some commissioner-defined options or conditions of a rezone. I'm not really sure exactly what that language needs to be, but that's why we're going to work with the commissioner and the planning department to figure that out. And we've been able to work it out where we have enough time with the current landowner to allow us to do that, thankfully. So I want to thank everybody that has, reached back out to us and gave us your feedback and your time for that. We really, really do appreciate it. And anybody that we haven't talked to yet, we absolutely want to get your feedback so that, over the next 30 days, and really we want to work this out ASAP, not 30 days from now, so that we have a clear picture and a path forward to a good, successful project that everybody can be happy with within the community. So I'll just, I don't want to harp on, the flyover's not going through. I don't want to harp on all that stuff. Everybody has basically agreed that, this needs to be residential. So I'll save the time and just, ask for, to hold this till the June 6th meeting.
Thanks, Mr.
Thank you.
Underwood. Is there anyone else here to speak to the Classic Road project? All right, could I have you read the ordinance on this?
There are two items with this one, two ordinances with this item as well, Mr. Mayor. Amendment to future land use map, a rezoning. Read them both. An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to amending the official future land use map of Athens-Clarke County by changing the designation of approximately 10.88 acres of land located at 286, 290, and 296 Classic Road from general business and employment center to mixed-density residential and for other purposes. And then an ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to rezoning 3 parcels of land comprising approximately 10.88 acres located at 286, 290, and 296 Classic Road from E1 employment industrial to RM2 mixed-density residential.
Thanks, Attorney Drake. I'll turn to Commissioner Hool since this is in District 6.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion to hold until the next voting meeting and save my remarks for if I get a second.
I second it.
Thank you.
Got a motion from Commissioner Hool, second from Commissioner Thornton.
Yeah, so had a good meeting with the applicant to kind of talk through, what they're hoping to do, what they're willing to maybe do in response to concerns that were raised by staff in their report. Assuming colleagues are amenable to this hold, we have a meeting scheduled with planning staff tomorrow to kind of go over that, see if we can reach a middle ground. There are some concerns regarding the corridor generally that I think are kind of impossible to address in a CDO, but maybe we can work through some of the design elements in a way that makes sure that, even though we haven't gotten through the future land use update, even though there are some infrastructural shortcomings for residential on that corridor, maybe there's a way to make this work and leave open possibilities for the future that make sense for the adjacent lots. So yeah, I'm open to having that conversation, hopeful that we might get somewhere that can be a win-win. And in the meantime, asking y'all for a hold. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Thornton, any follow-up?
No, I really don't. I did talk to Commissioner Hool about this, and I think that, trying to find that pathway forward is urgent, and I'll be glad to assist any way I can.
Thank you. Any other input on this item? All right, there's a motion and a second to hold until our June voting meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, we will see this again in a little over a month. All right, the third item tonight on the agenda is 595 Prince Avenue. Is there anyone here to speak to that item? All right, with my voice echoing through the chamber, we're going to go ahead and move to the District Commissioner, Commissioner Wright in District 4.
Yes, I will start off with making a motion for us to accept the recommendation for approval. We have land use first, which has been unanimous, unanimous by, no, wait a minute, sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. It's just the one. Approval is my motion.
Second.
I've got a motion from Commissioner Wright, second. Who did the second? Oh, here, we're going to call it Culpepper. All right. So motion from Commissioner Wright, second from Commissioner Culpepper. Can you read that ordinance for me, Attorney Drake?
An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to rezoning 0.382 acres a parcel of land comprising approximately 4.14 acres and located at 595 Prince Avenue from institutional to CO and RM2 commercial office and mixed density residential -2 and for other purposes.
Thanks, Judd. Go ahead, Commissioner Wright.
Yes, I want to speak to the school district moving this property back onto the tax digest. I have been in contact with Historic Athens. I'm going to be meeting with the planning department and the associated people there to understand how we can get these parcels into a historic district or potentially with the current one that they are adjacent to, which is going to help us protect that if a demolition permit were to be pulled. There is currently, the Hill Street property is currently under contract, and I don't see any reason to hold up the progress that can be made to making this into a home. And then if there is a demo permit to be pulled on the Prince Avenue, I would hope that my colleagues would support me in us moving swiftly to what would help protect it with that historic district protocol that we have with our demolition permit and hold for that to happen. And I appreciate the school district releasing these at what I would call a good guy price that allows it to be bought and become a home and fixed from what it has been used at to be at home. And that's where I'm looking for everybody's support for that.
Thanks, Commissioner Wright. A seconder, Commissioner Culpepper, any follow-up?
No, I'm good.
Commissioner Link.
Yeah, I'd like to put forth a substitute motion that goes ahead and approves the Prince fronting property, but puts a hold till our next voting meeting on the Hill Street fronting property. I've had some conversations with several of the residents of Hill Street. They were my former constituents, and I've long fielded concerns from them about student housing in that RM1 zoned street, which the rest of the street is zoned RM1, but this little spit of like 4 or 5 little small tiny lots with single-family homes on them is zoned RM2 for some reason, which is not, it conflicts with the actual conditions of the properties. It would essentially be considered non-conforming. Is that the right language, Brad? They'd be considered non-conforming to the RM2 zoning.
If the zoning was changed, yes.
So, from what I understand, most of the folks on this street were unaware of the implications of the change to RM2 zoning, in that it would allow for 4 bedrooms, and there's not enough parking on site for 4 cars if it were to go to student housing. Of course, even if it's zoned historic, it doesn't have anything to do with the use, and much of that eastern end of the Hancock corridor is a historic district, but it's gone completely student housing to the detriment of the single-family folks who live there. So I just feel like there, as Commissioner Taylor pointed out earlier, there hasn't been any communication with the folks who actually live on the block about the implications of this zoning. From what I understand, there has been some communication with the people who own the adjacent lot, which effectively like shares a driveway, but they were not fully enlightened as to the full implications of that RM2 zoning, and they've requested an RM1. So I feel like just some conversation, a couple weeks of talking to the folks who actually live on that block and understanding their experience and the challenges they face with that RM1 zoning and how they could be even more challenging with additional RM2 zoning, I think would be helpful. Just give it a couple weeks. And, we had the same situation when we had a proposed fraternity house a couple blocks away. I feel like this needs the same kind of consideration.
Anyone else? Substitute motion on the floor.
Anybody want to second a delay of that Hill Street fronting property so we can have a little conversation with the folks who live there?
And Mayor, I hate to interrupt, but I'm not sure that we can bifurcate a rezoning request like this, and I think you would have to hold the whole thing, which you certainly can do, but I don't know how we could act on part of it and not vote on the rest of it at the same time.
I'm willing to amend my substitute motion for the whole lot.
So substitute motion to hold. All right, motion dies for a lack of a second. Return to the original motion. Commissioner Wright?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I am working diligently in this area to address the parking. We're looking at enforcement of the 2-hour parking that's near to the businesses, in conversation with the community there about residential parking pass permit scenario, and we are dealing with the parking issues in the appropriate manner. I just wanted you guys to know that.
Thanks, Commissioner. All right, there is a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
All right, please note, Clerk, Commissioner Link opposed. All right, others, motion carries. All right, item 4 is our 2023 Comprehensive Plan 5-year update, review, and approval. Members of the public, this really sort of kicks off a process that'll last about a year and a half. We have to do some formal submittals to the state to initiate this process, and this involves that. So is anyone here to speak to this item tonight? Item 4. All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Hool, second from Commissioner Link. Commissioner Hool, any input on this?
Talked about this quite a bit. Excited to get working on that future land use map, and then from there, working on the next version of this.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I just have a question for staff. When will we get some idea of how that future land use map planning process is going to move forward, and when there's going to be some public interaction with that process?
We will get some, we don't have specific dates scheduled yet. We have the data work and the base work has already started on the growth concept map from a staff level of pulling together what we need to start that. But it's anticipated, I would think, within the next 30 to 45 days. We were really kind of waiting to get this approved first.
Okay.
Our intent is to send out a schedule to all of you as well as the planning commissioners. I think we may even be looking at trying to reach out to each one of you individually to try to generate some interest with your constituents within each of your districts. And so we'll be looking to you to help, because we are looking for a robust process as we move through this. So
Okay.
I would say anticipate hearing something from staff with planning within the next 4 weeks, 5
Okay.
weeks.
That's good to know. What is the deadline for that 20-year update, future land use map?
Well, the future land use map is really a product out of the 2018 plan that we just, between COVID and other initiatives, weren't able to get to. It is scheduled to be completed in our work program next summer to early fall of
Okay.
24.
Okay,
And we feel like we are still on that schedule
Okay.
for next fall.
thank you.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Brad, go forth and do well.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next tranche of work is regarding our consent agenda. These are items 5 through 10 on tonight's agenda. Is there any member of the public who's here to speak to any of these items, 5 through 10? Good evening. Just let me know the items you're speaking to and your name.
Dylan Woolsey, I'm speaking on item 8. I would like to speak for this item for the renaming of part of the street to commemorate Linentown. Right now, Linentown is primarily an oral history transferred through members of the community, and people who are new to the community, they usually learn about this through an oral manner, through people just talking to people. But I think the renaming of part of the street to Linentown and to commemorate Linentown would be a good way to, I guess, have a permanent, knowledge and commemoration of that. So, right.
Thanks, Mr. Woolsey. Is there anyone else here to speak to any of the consent agenda items tonight? Evening.
My name is Dustin Hafley-Chance. I am here also to speak to item 8 for myself as well as for the Athens Reparation Action Fund, which is a 501c3 here in Athens that is working to raise money, specifically at this time for those who are displaced in Linentown. And we are obviously speaking in favor of item 8, and thank you for moving it to this consent agenda. And we hope that now and going forward, we can continue to work on things like this and get this to come to fruition as well. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chance. Is anyone else here to speak to any of these consent agenda items tonight? Would any commissioner like to remove an item from consent? All right, I would like to have Attorney Drake read the ordinances, and then we'll entertain a motion. Go ahead.
Yes, there's ordinances connected with items 5, 6, and 10. For item 5, an ordinance to amend the FY 2023 operating and capital budget for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, so as to provide grant funding if awarded from the Federal Aviation Administration, the Georgia Department of Transportation for Taxiway A reconstruction, Taxiway A3 realignment, and for other purposes. Item number 6 has two ordinances. An ordinance to amend the special purpose local option sales tax 2011 program budget so as to provide additional funding for project number 32, cost of building renovation, and an ordinance to amend the transportation special purpose local option sales tax 2018 program budget so as to provide additional funding for projects number 11, bicycle improvement program, and number 12, pedestrian improvement program, and for other purposes. And finally, item number 10, an ordinance to amend the FY 2023 operating capital budget for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, so as to provide additional funding for the purchase of an articulating platform ladder truck and for other purposes.
All right, thanks, Chad. I appreciate that. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have got a motion from Commissioner Wright and a second from Commissioner Hool. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. Good work, everyone. All right, we are coming back to the table with old business item 11. And I'd like to open it up before we go to old and new business with any public input on old and new business. Again, these are items 11 through 20. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tiffany Hogan on behalf of D.R. Horton, 1371 Dogwood Drive, Conyers, Georgia. On behalf of the applicant, we are seeking to withdraw the application for rezoning and future land use map amendment for 1125 Newton Bridge Road. I would also like to mention item number 12 is the application for the pump station and force main. I do believe that that was a staff application that is tied to the rezoning, so I will leave it to staff and commissioner on how to best handle that, but I do believe that it probably should be tabled along with, withdrawn at this time along with the application for rezoning. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Hogan. Appreciate it. Others who'd like to speak to old or new business?
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Michael McClendon. I live in Princeton Mill off South Lumpkin. I'm here to address two topics tonight. I'll address the second one and follow later in the agenda. Both of these deal with what I consider lack of accountability in local government. Many of you champion the need for greater transparency, accountability, and public engagement when you ran for public office. Many of you had made those same declarations from this podium. So tonight, I really want to challenge you to live up to what you have promised. And as I said, I'll speak to the second item later in the agenda. The first item I want to talk to is item 14. We all recall when this vote was made to award a contract for the eviction prevention program. I wrote several emails, never got any answers from the city manager or the attorney. A number of you also asked questions, and you were not very well satisfied with the answers you received. So from my standpoint, awarding the eviction prevention program contract was a case of malfeasance where culpability needs to be determined, followed by accountability here in Clarke County. Hopefully the GBI and FBI, because federal funds were involved, will do their job. But what about you? What I'm asking you to do is initiate a third-party investigation into ACC's actions to award this contract to a group that was only formed to bid on the contract and did not have the capability to actually execute that contract. But Athens-Clarke County signed a contract with them anyway. Why? What went on? And then also, why did it take so long to finally stop the contract? This investigation and mitigation, along with a report to the public, needs to be completed before any other prevention contract is considered. I note that at least 2 vendors are circling City Hall ready to swoop in to get their fair share of $900,000 plus if you restart this program. So it is my hope that you will exercise a large degree of accountability and actually investigate what has gone on to inform you before you make any further decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McClendon. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. I am also here to speak to item 14. The article, The Return on Investment of Pandemic Rental Assistance, that was published in the Indiana Health Law Review earlier this year, found that using 2020 and 2021 source data, pandemic eviction prevention settlement rental assistance, such as the program being proposed, has a positive return on investment of between 275 and 466%. Sure enough, this return on investment proves correctly for Athens-Clarke County's eviction prevention program from 2022. Using the University of Arizona's I4J Lab eviction calculator, which y'all can all access if you'd like to online, we can see that on average, an eviction in Georgia costs the community $9,669 in public funds per eviction. The ACC Gov ARPA dashboard, made by our own wonderful GIO team, shows that $832,000 was spent avoiding 425 households from being evicted in the program that we already had running. That comes to an average cost of $1,958 per household to keep that household in their home. That is a public fund savings of $7,711 per household served. Again, I will say that. That is a public fund savings of $7,711 per household served. And I'll read straight from the report. The ROI analysis finds that rental assistance stabilizes both tenants and landlords, preserves neighborhoods, and protects government budgets over the long term. The conclusion that the estimated benefits of rental assistance eclipse the estimated costs of providing the funds by 3 or 4 times suggests that rental assistance should supplant non-payment eviction as the social remedy for the inability to pay rent. In short, keeping people in their homes during this pandemic and beyond is not only the right thing to do, but it is economically the smart thing to do. Both entities that have applied for this RFP, the ARC and Family Promise, are very experienced doing this work and have shown that they are capable and reliable to run this program. I hope that you all vote to support to implement this program and help keep hundreds of families in their homes instead of sleeping on the streets, in tents, in cars, and in shelters. If the question is a moral one, I hope that you all agree with me that we should keep families housed, and I think you do. If the question is a policy one, the evidence shows that eviction prevention better sustains the physical, mental, and financial health of individuals facing eviction and the entire Athens community. And if the question is an economic one, the evidence overwhelmingly shows that this eviction prevention program is a much more fiscally responsible program and a way to move forward than continuing to allow evictions to happen. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Denson. Good evening.
Good evening here again. Also going to speak in support about item 14 with the continuing of the evictions as protection services. At the most recent town hall hosted by the wonderful Tiffany Taylor, one of the most frequent issues talked about was housing. There's many individuals there who talked about their experiences being homeless or having cases of near homelessness. And just the ability to prevent these things from happening, to prevent this hardship, is something that if we are able to, which we have the ARPA funds to do so, we should definitely continue to do. And just the number of people that this has positively impacted and will, if will continue to positively impact in the future, is just immense. And it, for those reasons, it definitely should be continued.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak to any item of old or new business?
Oh, wait, I start?
Yeah. Just let us know your name and the item which you're speaking.
Yeah, I'm Jake Hayes, and I'm here to support line item 14. I think that it's the best option. I'll keep my remarks pretty short because I think that's a straightforward issue. This program has helped over 400 people from being displaced and homeless. And I think that we can all agree as a moral issue that we should be helping these people. And I think that, I think that this is a common sense program. We should be helping people who are homeless before they get homeless so that we can, once they become homeless, it's a lot harder to not be homeless. Yeah.
Thank you. Let me get your name again for the record. I apologize.
Oh, yeah, Jake Hayes.
Jake Hayes, thank you. All right, anyone else here to speak to old or new business tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll come behind the rail. Again, first order of business is item 11, a held over zoning item. And I believe Commissioner Thornton, there was a request to allow a withdrawal of this item. Would you like to make a motion to have this item withdrawn?
I would like to make a motion that this item, in conjunction with the, can I do both? The pump
You got to do one at a time.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to withdraw the,
Accept a withdrawal on item 11.
11.
There's an amendment to the official land use map here and a rezoning.
Yeah, oh, okay, I got it. All right. On number 11, I would like to make a motion to withdraw that.
All right, so motion to withdraw the future land use map. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, I'll read it.
Go ahead and read that, Attorney Drake.
An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to amending the official future land use map of Athens-Clarke County by changing the designation of 137.73 acres of land located at 1125 Newton Bridge Road from employment center to traditional neighborhood and for other purposes.
All right, so there's a motion to withdraw from Commissioner Thornton, second from Commissioner Fisher. Any further input on this item?
I don't have any input. I thank Ms. Hogan for working with us. I think that this withdrawal will could come up with a much better plan for not just the new subdivision, but also the residents that live in that area. I will go back to Commissioner Link's statement about the land use map processing, but I guess that would be a different conversation. But I'm glad that she withdrew it so we can look at it again.
Any follow-up?
Yeah, I just want to echo Commissioner Thornton's comments. I think it's vital, though, that we continue to look in that particular area because I truly believe that that Newton Bridge corner is going to be an economic boom in the future. So whatever we do with that particular piece of property, we need to be mindful if we are going to decide to develop it, that we develop it in the right way, have the support of the people that live in that area. So again, we need housing, everybody knows that. So we just need to be mindful of that moving forward in the future.
Commissioner Link.
Yeah, I mean, this is another plot where I believe it does make sense for it to go residential, but I just feel like it needs a more mixed use, I don't know if it would be a planned development or if we can come up with a new subdivision ordinance that would allow for more mixed-use subdivisions on these very large plots of land, that would allow folks that live in these communities more diversity in how they use them and more diversity in housing options within those communities.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any further input? All right, motion to accept a withdrawal. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have a second item, which is the zoning action that we have to act on. So go right ahead, Attorney Drake.
In order to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to rezoning one parcel of land comprising approximately 137.72 acres located at 1125 Newton Bridge Road from EI Employment Industrial with conditions to RS 25 Single Family Residential -25 and for other purposes.
Motion to withdraw?
Oh, yes, I do make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, got a motion from Commissioner Thornton, second from Commissioner Link to accept a withdrawal. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. Item 12, somewhat associated. Commissioner Thornton, it might be most appropriate to make a motion just to hold this item.
On the
12.
12, which we're primarily talking about the pump station, right?
That's right.
Okay, I make a motion that we hold this, can I say indefinitely?
Yeah.
Indefinitely to hold the pump station.
Okay.
I do Do I want to?
Do a second? Second, then comment.
Got to make a comment first. For I
You don't know if you want to make that second.
no, well, 'cause, I thought Commissioner Link had already second.
That was the last.
Oh, that was the last one.
Okay.
Yeah, this was a lift station.
You can second.
Okay, I'll second.
And then go right ahead with your comment.
So my comment is though, does it make, and again, I just want the commissioner to think about, does it make sense though for us to go ahead and move on the pump station, go ahead and have it there already in place? And then if and when we decide to develop that, we won't be coming back again to vote on this, go ahead and put it in place. We have it there, and then again, as costs continue to escalate, does it make sense to go ahead now and to put the pump station in place? That's one of my comments. So.
Go for it.
I would just offer, well, the parameters might change slightly depending on what goes there. So I think it's a good idea from an efficiency standpoint, but just so we won't have to go back and amend it or change it.
If you had more housing, you might want a higher capacity pump, for example.
Okay.
Yes.
That was all.
Commissioner Davenport?
So I get the sense and the economics of holding it indefinitely, but I just, when it comes to pump station, I have because another developer could come in and do something completely different that may not require a pump station. So I will be denying to hold indefinitely.
Okay. Manager Williams?
And I'll defer to Attorney Drake, but the indefinitely, should we say until such time?
Until such time, I guess it would be.
A future request.
Mr. Mayor, I
Place
think
effective.
usually just a motion to table kind of achieves it never comes back unless any of us want to, and, yeah.
Yeah, I would typically not put it back on the agenda until there was another zoning item associated with it. So just a simple hold is fine. Not until the end of time.
Well, I just, Mayor, now, you and I talked about this now, so let's be clear. Let's be clear. I make a motion that we table it to such time, okay?
It's just a tabling.
I second.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Me.
All right, please note Commissioner Davenport opposed. All right, moving on to 13. Our recently formed Human Relations Commission, with the support of our Inclusion Office, has put together their annual work plan, and I'd entertain a motion for approval of said work plan.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Wright, second from Commissioner Thornton. Commissioner Wright, any input on this item?
I'm ready to move it forward.
All right, Commissioner Thornton, any follow-up?
No.
All right, any other input on this? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. Item 14 is the funding recommendation for the American Rescue Plan Act funded eviction prevention program to be awarded to Family Promise. Entertain a motion regarding this item.
I'm going to make a motion to, on number 14, because I'm going to vote no. I want to speak to it.
So you'd like to make a motion against, to deny?
Yeah.
Is there a second to deny? Motion fails for lack of a second. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
All right, got a motion to approve from Commissioner Hool, second from Commissioner Link. All right, go right ahead, Commissioner Hool.
Yeah, I think a lot of the best arguments to be made for this were made at the podium, and also sort of speak for themselves in the data collected from the first go of this. We did certainly run into issues with the vendor who was running the program before, so obviously we had to cut the program off because of the issues with the vendor, but the program itself had proved itself, I think, to be very successful. And there's a strong economic argument for this. I think it's much cheaper to keep people in their homes than it is to try to rehouse them. I also think there's a strong moral imperative for us to do what we can for people who are in a precarious situation in their housing, to keep them in it. The housing crisis that this community is facing is especially dire for people who don't have anywhere to live already. It's that much harder for them to get into anywhere. And so this program to me really makes a lot of sense, and I'm also very grateful that this time around we have two organizations teaming up, so it's a great example of collaboration among multiple nonprofit entities in town, and both of them are very experienced, both with low-income populations and with matters of housing. So much so that they not only understood and sort of, they knew the assignment, responded to it in their RFP, but also proposed how we could maybe build upon it and do something else in tandem at the same time. And I'm really grateful that they offered that and that staff put together an agenda item that captures all of that. And I'm excited to see us move forward on this, and hopefully it'll do a good bit of good for a few hundred more families. So.
Thanks, Commissioner. As seconder, Commissioner Ling.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Hull was pretty thorough in laying out the reasons to approve this, and I thank former Commissioner Denson for coming to the podium with some statistics and facts and figures. Regardless of the economic impact of this, I believe the real reason to approve this is the moral reason. So an eviction can set off a cavalcade of disasters for a family from which they can never recover. And so I believe we have a moral imperative to continue this program.
Commissioner Thornton, while your motion didn't carry earlier, would you like to provide comment?
Yes, thank you. I'm not, based on the moral point that has been brought up, I do support assistance with eviction. As far as economics, I do support prevention of eviction. I'll go one step further and say mental health is really important with people facing eviction. But we forget too fast that prior to this one group who was managing the ARP money, we have 3 or 4 groups who, when we use CARES money to help people with eviction and food, and instead of us building on groups that had worked through some challenges, we come up with a whole new program. We couldn't even get a report on how many people were served from them 3 or 4 groups that we used the CARES money on. Now, as far as the database and the DASH information, you know why it was good? Because the organization that did it, the one we're talking about, we're not calling no names, they inputted that information. So, I think, again, when you talk about morals and economics and mental health, let's be sincere. We did not even have to go that route. We had groups before this group, and now we're going to come up with another group. Now, I'm not going to go any further, but because my ears are getting hot now. But I do think that we as a government should build on what's working, tweak it, and fix it. And then when somebody or something doesn't go right, we want to throw it away, and we don't even want to admit we are wrong. No, I'm not going to vote for this, and I have no problems with Family Promise or the ARC. But we had groups that were doing this with CARES money, and we didn't even get a report. You know why we didn't get a report? Because they did a good job.
Got Commissioner Myers telephonically.
Hello, Mayor, if you can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I apologize if I repeat anything. The audio in my earbuds and through this mechanism we're using is not particularly clear. But I did want to make this point that, like I believe some of my colleagues said, I appreciated the comments of our speakers here, including our first speaker who, asked for an update on what was going on with the first recipient of this program money, and I would encourage our manager's office to get that to us. I would appreciate that as well. I think that I do support this right now. Family Promise evaluation score is incredibly high, and the evaluation that it went through to be recommended for this was a 91 out of 100. I think this program does different things than some of our other programs in that it works with our courts in a real successful way for people who are facing eviction. I was just looking at the numbers again, in looking over our comprehensive plan and, seeing how 60% of Athenians rent. And did a little quick search and found out there was a 13% rise this past year in two-bedroom median rates at $1,350, which is $800 more than it was 5 years ago. So there are people who are right on the edge, and I think this program can do something to help with them. We're going to be discussing homelessness and affordable housing more on Thursday at our retreat. We need to support this. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. I had Commissioner Davenport and then Commissioner Hamby.
Yes, I'm going to support this. I think it's a lot harder to find a home for those who lose it. We already have a housing shortage as it is. But I do want to make a comment that I think this is the longest history with 65 points to it, so very interesting.
Commissioner Hamby.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. And I'll just to point out, I guess it's facts and issues, or no, it's not facts and issues, or it's facts and issues. Yeah, number 6. It's the partnership, talking about Family Promise and with partnership with the ARC, two organizations who've done good for us in the past, and I hope they will continue to do good. Additionally, the modified prevention program would provide wraparound case management to participants, including assistance finding better employment, more housing, and more, which I think is beyond what we were doing previously, which I think is a good thing. I will say this, though, in looking at it and addressing the transparency of not only this, but of CDBG dollars, and as we're doing with ARPA dollars, that perhaps somewhere on the website, like we do with SPLOST, that gives updates on SPLOST projects, where the dollars are going and how much is left. But I did a quick peruse. I didn't see it on our HCD website. Maybe it's there and I overlooked it. But maybe highlighting it a bit more if it is there. I know when we get our CDBG presentation, we do get updates about what the previous organizations have done, but that's only a once a year thing. But perhaps if, and I believe they send in monthly reports, or then perhaps if those are made public, then that might help people see what's happening with these dollars and how they're being managed. So, and we can have a bigger discussion about that as we move forward about procedures for this commission and for staff. But for right now, if y'all can start thinking about that.
Just in the short term, is there anything you want to identify in terms of
just
information access?
There's been several comments along these lines, and the previous entity's under investigation, and we're not at liberty to discuss it.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about.
No, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hamby. This was separate from your comment.
Okay.
This was in no relation to your
But
comment.
hopefully with what I'm suggesting, we can move forward with making sure anybody that gets any federal dollars or state dollars, that there is some transparency in where those dollars are heading. We do it with our budget. We do it with SPLOST. We ought to be doing it with anything that comes our way.
Well, the eviction prevention dashboard, and your point's well taken, and I'm sorry. I was responding to Commissioner Myers and others' inquiries about that. I will say that I think staff, with respect to the eviction prevention program, had updated the dashboard monthly in 2022, but your point's well taken, Commissioner, and we'll look into that.
And maybe just make it easier to find for people.
And I think the easiest landing place for all of those federal funds that we've received over the last year, at least for me, is the accgov.com/ARPA page.
Yeah.
accgov.com/ARPA. And if you go down to the sort of bottom of that, there's a data hub where you can look at the homelessness piece and the housing piece.
I know we do it for ARPA, and I was making the suggestion too for CDBG.
Oh, to extend that.
Right.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So on an ongoing basis, like we have with SPLOST, we
Right.
have that for those.
Right. No, that's helpful. All right, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say aye.
No.
All right, please note Commissioner Thornton opposed. All right, we're moving on to 15, which is the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program Policy Revision and Annual Project Approval. As noted in earlier conversations, I have embedded $300,000 of general fund dollars in the recommended budget, which of course y'all will begin discussing in the next couple of weeks, just in terms of knowing how that addresses the existing list of approved by the objective criteria and approved by the neighborhood projects. If we continued that trend between our SPLOST dollars and general fund dollars next year, that would whittle down that list to nothing in 2 years, just as a heads up. So, Commissioner Hool.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the correspondence with colleagues in advance of this and with staff. I'd like to make a motion to approve the commission-defined option contained in our agenda packet with one minor amendment based on feedback I got from colleagues today, which is just in E on that proposal, the last sentence, to have it say, these policies shall be presented to committee for consideration and then brought to the mayor and commission. So I can forward that by email, but that's just specifying that we're going to involve committee in this process and not jump straight to a work session or something. And I hope if I can get a second, we can move forward on this, and I'd be happy to elaborate if colleagues want me to. Probably want to say just a little more regardless, but, yeah.
And I'll second it. I would like to make a comment, though.
Thanks, Commissioner Hamby. And just to that element, Commissioner Hool, I'm glad to put that into committee, so go right ahead with your comments.
Thank you,
And
Mayor.
the comment I would make is, I think it's good to put it in the committee so that we have an understanding of if we are changing policies, what those policies look like for all the streets. And I know there's been a challenge with some streets meeting the 65%. And hopefully that is something that could be looked at, but also what is outlined here for the pilot projects might help some people reach the 65% or lower the 65% for one point. I would say this though, I couldn't help but the whittled down over the next 2 years. I think I heard the mayor say, I'm hopefully as budget time comes around, we're going to need to add more than your $300,000 that put in there, because I'd like to whittle it down over the 1 year period and not the 2 year period. There's streets that have been that have gone through the process and worked through it, and even if you add up one of the spreadsheets, it totals to $785,000, which leaves us about $100,000 short, but that also doesn't allow us to do future projects or to do some of the other projects that come along next year as well. So I think we want to whittle it down, but we also want to be ahead of the curve so that we can address some other activities that go on as well to make our streets safer. So,
Commissioner Hool, did you want to note some of the substance of the commission-defined option?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump ahead of you there.
That's all right.
Were you done, Commissioner Hamby?
I think so,
Okay.
unless you say something that's.
I don't think I'm going to be wilding out. I want to summarize because, we talk, sometimes I think people is just like, what even is a CDO? So this commission-defined option that's on here, for members of the public who are looking, you see the proposal, that's what we're passing, that's binding. The comments are just sort of there for context, sort of provided by me in consultation with colleagues and staff. But it does note, sort of an encouragement, and this was based on some conversations I had with some of y'all, that maybe we as the commission in our budget process can think about amending the mayor's proposed budget to include a bit more funding for this program, which I too would support seeing. As far as what the CDO accomplishes, it responds to, I think, what we've heard from staff repeatedly, that the update to the neighborhood traffic management plan, the NTMP, created quite the burden on staff because of the high amount of interest from the community, and we know there are many more neighborhoods and streets that also need to be considered, some of which are in dire need and probably rise to the top quite quickly. I see Commissioner Taylor nodding at me. I think we know exactly what we're talking about here. And so, that process is going to remain in place, but this opens the door for a revision that staff can kind of put together on what they have made sense of, lessons learned from the current policy, bring that back to our committee. So thank you for being willing to assign that, Mayor Gertz, for us to consider, and then hopefully that kind of reshapes a better, more efficient process moving forward, both for residents to get their needs met and for staff to not be overburdened. It also allows us to move forward on what's already ready, because despite the shortcomings of the policy, there are some neighborhoods that are ready, and so to not keep them waiting, and allows us to move forward to some degree, kind of in this intermediate way, with those high need, top priority neighborhoods that haven't gotten over the finish line yet, but we know there is a strong desire in many in the community with this pilot program idea. So my attempt in this was to try to explain all that as concisely as possible in 2 pages, but I'm excited to hear that there seems to be support in the room. And just to clarify, I didn't want to specify how it would be brought to us because it's not really my place to set our agenda, but I appreciate you, Mayor, being willing to assign it to committee, and so I'm very glad to amend the motion in that way. Thanks, y'all.
Commissioner Thornton.
I just wanted to say I'm glad to support this CDO. I think the conversations back and forth have cleared up some things, especially for me. I'm real concerned about the process that keeps leaving out so many communities because they don't send back a postcard or don't get to vote or whatever. I think when this comes to policy and working with the commission, all of our communities will feel safer with the traffic calming. So I'm really excited for opportunities for District 3 and 9 to be part of this process. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Got Commissioner Wright, and then I'll be moving to Commissioner Myers on the phone, and then Link.
Yeah, I'm happy to support this with the committee looped into the process. I do believe that we want to hear staff's concerns and points of improvement that can be made, but I also don't want us to overwork individual commissioners by feeling they need to take it all on themselves. So that's what the committee work is for, is it gives us a chance to work with staff to vet it in our 2 different committee groups, commissioner committee groups, giving that staff feedback on their proposals. It's a two-way street, not just a one-way street with that. And I think that this was an LRC, but I'm not sure if where it's gonna land. But if we didn't do it right, maybe it's time to give it to GOC. I'm not sure how you dice that up. But also the budget part of it, I'm usually leery of money and commission-defined options, but starting next week, we're gonna be talking about the budget. So we're right at that time to be able to locate that money probably from our excessive revenues and the assessments on our property taxes and our property base. So I'm confident that we are going to have money to find for this and for the other roads and making this process work. So it's all about safety. And I appreciate this happening and us moving it forward together.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, hi. I was a little confused by the CDO until I had a good long conversation with Commissioner Houle and also with Manager Williams. So I see that it provides funding for the same set of permanent neighborhood traffic projects as in the original one, but puts aside this $100K for the quick build materials. I did want to ask Manager Williams, though, to address a couple of things, and that is, does the staff support the use of these quick build materials for pilot projects? And do they feel they have a capacity for managing these quick build pilot projects? And also if they're in support of further revising the policy to differentiate between publicly funded traffic calming projects and neighborhood self-funded projects. And if Manager Williams could address that, I'd appreciate it.
Manager Williams, did you get that?
I did. Thanks, Commissioner Myers, and I appreciate the question. And just by way of context, the last time that the commission amended the neighborhood traffic management program, there were 66 requests that were submitted by commissioners, whereas in the previous 20 years, I think we might have done 20 projects. So there obviously is an intent by the commission to move forward, but the staff capacity to implement those is limited to some degree. With respect to these pilot temporary materials, the staff's advised me that they can do 1 or 2 of those in any 60 or 90-day period. So I just want to temper expectations that staff's willing to do that if the commission, directs the manager in that fashion. It's just that their capacity is somewhat limited.
Commissioner Myers, does that answer your question?
Oh, hi there. Am I there now?
Yes.
Okay, I had kept it muted. Also, the question about staff addressing the policy and differentiating between these two kinds of publicly funded traffic calming projects versus neighborhood self-funding traffic calming, that they, have an interest in pursuing that and concerns and ideas themselves.
I believe that would be part of the component that would go to committee discussion. So that
Okay.
that would be subject to lots of future conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And that would involve, I think, a process to set up a special district to collect those funds, perhaps. And that's something that we would look forward to deliberation with the committee on.
Okay. I've got Commissioner Link, and then I'll return to some others.
So don't we already have a process for self-funding traffic calming? I recall when I first got on the commission like 9 years ago under Mayor Denson, we passed.
We have it for sidewalks,
Oh,
but I
okay,
don't believe
so
we
it's
have
not
it for
It's
traffic
not for
calming.
speed, okay, okay, that's what I'm recalling then. So by these quick build projects, are we talking about kind of like those rubber speed bumps that you often see in parking lots and things like that, or similar to like the Prince Avenue temporary pilot project type materials?
Commissioner Houle, is it those bolt down items that you were envisioning?
They're more like the speed tables, and also the benefit of these is that you can put them down in one place, and after that 60 or 90-day period, pull
Yeah.
them up and put them somewhere
Yeah.
else. So it's a one-time expense to get.
And from what I
neighborhoods to see
understand,
it.
they're not expensive. I mean, the speed table we build costs, what, like 10 or 12 grand? I remember looking them up at one point and being a little surprised at how cheap they were. Because ostensibly, they're not as permanent as.
Of course, the budget also is, sending people out to put them.
Yeah,
in
you
and pull
gotta
them back up,
install
so,
them.
Commissioner Houle, any follow-up before I move to Commissioner Hamby?
Yeah, just to speak to the content, the neighborhood traffic management plan in its original form, I think, was actually trying to seek to provide that mechanism, sort of akin to sidewalks where neighborhoods could self-fund. And it's evolved to be something where now we're putting public funding into it. But the structure of the whole program still has residue of when it was self-funded. And I think that's where we've had part of the issue here, right? Is that like neighborhoods that are maybe very well organized or better resourced or have more, homeowners comprising all of the lots are, perhaps better suited to navigate a process derivative of something where it was originally designed to be self-funded, and other neighborhoods not so much. And so that's where the suggestion to have two policies in tandem be explored would be to solidify that policy or propose. We're not solidifying anything with the CDO. It's just to bring it to committee. But the committee would have the opportunity to solidify two separate policies, one for neighborhoods to self-fund and another for us to continue essentially where we've evolved to be today, but with a process for getting projects on the list similar to what we're doing today that makes more sense, is not as onerous on staff, is a lot more reasonable for residents, factors in all of the criteria that we've used and are now updating tonight in terms of crash data and lack of amenities, and frankly does a better job of providing equity to a process that is inherently inequitable as it currently sits. So.
Commissioner Hamby?
Yeah, I think I forgot what I was going to say, but maybe it has something to do with that. Manager Williams mentioned capacity, and maybe that's something we need to look at too, as far as the budget goes for staff, to make sure that, if we're asking folks to do this work, that if we're paying for the materials, we need to make sure there's somebody there to put them down. So, thank you.
All right, there is a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, we're going to move on to item 16. This is the airport perimeter fencing project, and this is a GDOT grant agreement. Do we have an ordinance associated with this, Attorney Drake?
An ordinance to amend the FY 2023 annual operating and capital budget for Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, so as to provide grant funding if awarded from the Georgia Department of Transportation, GDOT, for the airport perimeter fencing project Phase 1 at the Athens Ben Epps Airport and for other purposes.
Thanks,
Motion
Attorney
to
Drake.
approve.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Hamby. Is there a second? All right, I've got a second from Commissioner Davenport. Commissioner Hamby, any airport updates?
No, ready to fly.
Commissioner Davenport, you ready to fly?
All the coyotes and deer that cross that runway is highly needed.
All right. Any other animal Observations? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to item 17, this is the Athens Cultural Affairs Commission FY23 Operational Spending Plan. Attorney Drake, is there an ordinance, or is this funding already in the budget and we're just allocating it to?
There's not an ordinance for this.
Okay, to a work plan. Okay, entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve. I have questions too.
Second.
Got a motion from Commissioner Link, second from Commissioner Hool. Commissioner Link, go right ahead.
Yeah, at one point, the Cultural Affairs Commission was supposedly funded for a staff member specific to that commission, and that seems to have like faded into the ether. Can anyone give us an update on that? Like what's
They currently still have a staff member.
But wasn't there like an additional, like a full-time staff or?
Tatiana is the full-time staff member.
Okay, so
to
she's full-time
ACAP.
now? Okay.
And
so
embedded
that-
in the Leisure Services Department.
That's correct.
Okay, so she's working for Leisure Services, it's not, so does
Yes,
she have
ma'am.
duties outside the Cultural Affairs Commission?
She focuses on art, so that ties into the ACAC as well,
Okay.
or Athens Cultural Affairs Commission.
Okay. And another question that kind of pertains to another agenda item. The cost of building, will it qualify for that 1% for public art?
I believe it should.
Okay, that's what I
It
thought.
should as a public-facing capital
So-
project.
Somewhere down the line, we'll be seeing a proposal for that. Good to know.
Commissioner Hool, any follow-up?
Nope. I love that art.
Any other input? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, items 18, 19, and 20 are new business that we need to consider under suspension of rules. Can I entertain a motion for suspension of rules?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Hamby, second from Commissioner Thornton for suspension of rules. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, 18 is an amendment to the Athens Neighborhood Health Center lease to facilitate emergency repairs.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Hamby, second from Commissioner Taylor. Commissioner Hamby, any follow-up?
No, sir.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes, I think that because I can't want to say the health department, but I'm on two different streets. And this is in my district. I shouldn't have said that out loud. So moving forward, I think that it's very important that we get the health center up and running with these repairs, because we do have a lot of residents that are having to find other means, and prescription being fairly high. So I think that this is good that we're talking about this tonight. Hopefully the calls will stop.
Appreciate it. Commissioner Thornton?
Mayor, I am going to recuse myself on this vote, even though I totally support it. Medications have gone from $40 to $400. I'm going to recuse myself because I need to have another conversation with the attorney, but good job.
Thanks, Commissioner Thornton. Commissioner Fisher?
And just to follow up, I hope as we move forward, this will be a lesson learned from us, from the government, especially when we're dealing with healthcare issues and people trying to get their prescriptions. I think there really needs to be a urgent need when things like this happen. Of course, with the winter and the pipes bursting, and a lot of people, had to move or be relocated. But I think we need to really be intentional when we're looking at entities like that we lease and that we're supporting the community, that we need to do everything in our power to get them up and running as soon as possible. 4 months is a long time to go. And I understand, working with risk management, working with insurance, but if we just need to be intentional in the future. And again, I think it can be a lesson learned moving forward for us, and when these things happen in the future, we know, okay, this is serving a large group of people. How fast can we get this going? I'm glad that Manager Williams and the staff came up with the plan to go ahead and let them get started, because we're still waiting for the insurance company. But again, I think in hindsight, we wish we could have did that earlier to move on. But again, I think it's a lesson learned for us, and then we can look at that in the future, so how we can avoid these type of things, moving forward.
And my observation, Commissioner, is that sometimes you've got obviously independent entities that are leasing space that happens to be in a government facility, and that I think it may be the case that sometimes they don't know the necessary steps to take, and so sometimes we have to be something of a shepherd and say, can we facilitate some new space for you if you need that? So I think we've learned that.
Well, if I could respond to that. So there were a number of facilities damaged, and we are awaiting, proceeding with repairs on a couple of them for those purposes. We did explore with the Neighborhood Health Center, potentially an alternative site. Commissioner Taylor, pursued that recently with, the space next door. And there were discussions back and forth between the health department and the Athens Neighborhood Health Center. As it turns out, I've been informed that, that space is not compliant for a pharmacy or the drug, the DEA. So they did, I think Neighborhood Health Center did look at a modular unit, but that's, those are permits, and there's a whole bunch of things to go on there too. So I don't want anybody to think that folks weren't investigating different alternatives, because that's not the case. It has taken a while, and this is the compromise to try and move things forward.
Commissioner Link?
I know there was a lot of damage done in that December freeze, and I'm wondering if we've developed any new policies or procedures for alerting those who are using those buildings. I mean, we all saw the freeze coming, and it was over a holiday weekend when we knew buildings were going to be empty. My husband and I left town, and we knew to drain our pipes to make sure that we didn't see a disaster like that. But in this climate, it's not a regular thing for folks to experience that kind of freeze. So do we have some protocols that we're developing to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Because the best, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Well, staff certainly is troubleshooting, how to prevent this in the future. I want to be careful in characterizing that we should have done something differently. I mean, obviously hindsight's 20/20. And I could go into more detail about this particular building, but I'm not sure that's a good idea this time.
All right, we've got a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm recusing.
All right, recusal from Commissioner Thornton. All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, item 19 is a resolution in recognition of Municipal Court Clerks Week.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Hamby.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Thornton. Commissioner Hamby, any follow-up?
I appreciate our municipal clerks.
Yeah.
Do good work.
Commissioner Thornton?
I appreciate our municipal clerk. Do good work.
Commissioner Houle?
I just want to appreciate our municipal clerks reaching out to us to let us know about this. And then the mayor and staff jumping so quickly on getting it on our agenda in time for it to apply this year. So,
Thanks. I will note, I think for many, many, many residents, municipal court's the only court they're ever going to see unless they get called for jury duty. It's in many ways sort of a customer service court, and I have to give a lot of appreciation to the staff over there who really facilitate many, many, many thousands of people who move through that facility a year, and do it in a way that's explanatory to let people know why you're here, what process you need to be involved in, how to quickly expedite your case, if you need a delay, how to do that. So they are in many ways handholders and counselors to the public. So I thank them for that work. So that said, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, municipal court employees. All right, last item that receives a vote tonight are appointments to various boards, authorities, and commissions. You have a nominating committee report in front of you. Is there a motion to accept the nominating committee report?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Wright and a second from Commissioner Fisher. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I just want to make a comment about the authority members.
Yes.
And I realize, specifically talking about the Classic Center, the two who were reappointed have done a great job, but I think something we need to look at moving forward with the Classic Center is having somebody from the hotel industry represented on that Classic Center authority, because a large percentage of their funding, that the Classic Center funding, is from the hotel motel tax. And I think we need to consider that when we're looking at potential members.
No, I appreciate that. And just in terms of the structure, of course, it's public authority, so there's a state general assembly approved charter. So one thing that could be a charter amendment is that kind of designation. There are some authorities that have a specified slot for a particular industry. Commissioner Houle?
Yeah, separate from this list, but related to BACs, I just wanted to ask while we're here. I had the chair of our Athens in Motion Commission drop by my open office hours today and let me know that they've been having trouble getting quorum because they're lacking an appointee from the Greenway Commission. But the way their bylaws are written, they have to have a hard 6 in attendance, and 6 out of 8 is harder to get than 6 out of 9. So they've actually missed a couple of meetings just for lack of a quorum. So if there's some way that staff or the mayor can help us rectify that as soon as possible, I think maybe the Greenway needs to recommend someone that we have to approve, but just to help their committee not continue to lack the opportunity to even meet because there aren't enough members on it, that'd be helpful.
Manager Williams, could we reach out to staff who facilitate the Greenway Commission around that? Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. I want to go ahead and announce those who are now appointed to terms.
Oh, I think we need to vote still, actually.
I believe we just voted, did we? We did. Okay. All in favor, just to confirm, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So on the Airport Authority, Diane Napier is going to serve a 4-year term. On the Classic Center Authority, Jack Crowley and Jennifer Zorn are going to serve 4-year terms. On the Deferred Compensation Board, Dennis Smiley is going to serve a 2-year term. On the Hearings Board, Janelle Simpson and Julianne Geddes are going to serve 4-year terms. On the Historic Preservation Commission, Bobby Epting and William Van Linden are going to serve 3-year terms. And on the Planning Commission, Matthew Hall is going to serve a 5-year term. So thank you to everybody who applied for those, but both those who are going to be serving as well as those who applied and were not selected will be receiving letters from my office in the next week. I just signed those today. Okay, now is that time, friends, when we have public input on any item not on tonight's agenda. So if there's anything you would like to speak to Commissioner and myself about, 3 minutes is your opportunity, beginning now. Evening.
Attorney Gray. These are 4 for y'all up front. We'll distribute these. My name is Michael McClendon. I live in Princeton Mill off of South Lumpkin Street. I spoke earlier about 2 topics I wanted to talk about tonight that both have to do with accountability. I talked about the first one with the rent eviction program. And the second one I want to talk about is a little more complex, but it has to do with accountability, transparency, public engagement. What you're being distributed now is a resolution that I'm proposing for your consideration to ensure timely engagement, transparency, and trust in local government. In February of this year, you passed a resolution, and I kind of quote and paraphrase, to practice and promote civility, recognizing robust debate and the right to self-expression, which are fundamental rights and essential components of democratic self-governance. The mayor started out tonight reading a short paragraph, which was kind of a précis of those same kind of themes. So what I'm suggesting tonight is that it's time for you to follow through on the pledge that you all voted on back in February. My resolution proposes 11 actions to mitigate what I consider major deficiencies in how Athens-Clarke County does business regarding access to information, constraints on public citizen speaking publicly on matters before local government and actually receiving answers, and the lack of mechanisms to assure accountability in executing those actions. I will email each one of you tonight a copy of what appears in front of you for your interest. It's interesting to me that Athens-Clarke County, when you look at the paperwork and you listen to the words, talks a good game, but it does not model the behavior. And what I mean by that is robust debate means an actual debate. Those are your words, robust debate. That was in your resolution. That is, citizens ask questions, and officials in public, you ask officials in public, and you get timely answers in public, so there can be a conversation. It does not mean obfuscation and silence from public officials. It doesn't mean just listening to people who support your agenda. It means listening to all citizens and responding to all citizens. Let me just give you 3 examples. Many of you have shared with me privately that it is just not the public that is often in the dark, and that you're not always provided meeting agendas and information lead time away to even have thoughtful conversation and many times to even read what's being presented.
Mr. McClendon, I appreciate it. Your time is up, but if you'd email the remainder of your comments, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Others to speak on any item not on tonight's agenda?
Hi, my name is Karina Gallagher, and I live at 325 Bray Street. So I made a list, as always, and as you move into the budget, there are a few things I hope that you consider. Consider increasing the pay for the coroner. The coroner currently makes about the same amount as the commissioner. They deal with a lot more stuff than commissioners. Increase the allocation to the sheriff's department. From the outside looking in, and based on another meeting that I came to, because the sheriff's department is majority black and the police department looks majority white, it can look like the allocations are skewed because of race. As you discuss streets, sidewalks, bike lanes, consider the youngest commuters. Safe routes to schools should probably be on the top of the list for, what's the group? The group that focuses on what amounts to bike lanes. I want to encourage the commission to work with the state to support their shift and focusing on mental health. So reach out to the legislators. There's a lot of money that they're talking about putting forward. We have a lot of mental health challenges inside of Athens. Much like with the malls had, Envision Athens, Athens Wellbeing Project, there's a lot of collaboration with the school district. Looking at the budget, if there would be some point where there'd be a collaborative effort to look at the overall priorities and then see if those match with where we're spending money. I think that's important. Expecting constituents to automatically know where district lines are is unrealistic, especially when legislators change district lines, and the county does not make a concerted effort to make sure that everyone in the county is educated about what that looks like, who commissioners are, the different departments inside of the county. There's everything about county government that so many people that I met have no clue about. So we should do a better job there. Nonprofit accountability. I've said this since I was 18 years old. We have no nonprofit accountability. We have hundreds of nonprofits in Athens-Clarke County, and we always talking about eradicating poverty or reducing risk or helping our teens or our youth, and we don't hold anyone accountable at all. Recruit and hire young people to work inside the county. They are going to be our future leaders. Everyone is not going to live forever. And please make sure that the selection process for sites is clearly communicated, and we go back and look at how that is done. It is an outdated process and misleading to the people who are voting on locations.
Thanks, Ms. Gallagher. Anyone else here to speak to any item not on tonight's agenda? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jay Barnes, and I reside at 578 Epps Parkway. This address is a collection of duplexes located directly on Epps Bridge. The noise from the traffic is often bothersome, but it's home. Recently, we have been beset by an out-of-town cabal of brigands and ruffians intent on fulfilling their own mysterious ends while disrupting our lives, and woe to the residents who dare exist nearby. For months, ongoing utility work related to Atlanta Gaslight has made us hostages in our own homes, at the mercy of crews from AGL, as well as contractors Pride Utility and Primoris Services, which are in fact the same entity. As a result of lane closures, these crews have frequently blocked both our driveway and our mailboxes. I've reached out to the crews on several occasions and asked them to cease these contemptuous acts, yet they persist. Further up on Timothy Road, steel plates have been left in the roadway, again, for months, while the project proceeds slower than lunch service at Loco's. The crews show up completely at random, gone for days, then suddenly appearing once again to inconvenience us and our mail delivery. If delays like this sound normal for such projects, you may be interested to hear that in November of 2021, the City of Brunswick sued AGL and Pride Utility for excessive work delays, as well as changing their work plans without informing the city, which led to a water main breach. Then, instead of simply fixing the problem, AGL and Pride have dragged out the litigation ever since. I'll bet they didn't mention that when they were applying for their permits. We recognize that this work is essential for our community and that the safety of the crews is paramount, but we were never informed that our neighborhood would be the sacrificial lamb to appease this utility maelstrom. If we had been notified, perhaps by mail, that our neighborhood's infrastructure needed work and to expect delays and inconveniences, I would not stand before you this evening. But they came like thieves in the night, running roughshod over us, ignorant of our pleas, intent on their own foul machinations. I realize that there are difficulties in balancing local and state regulations, but y'all should be aware that you have citizens in distress. Over a month ago, I wrote to my District 7 commissioner regarding these concerns, but never received any response, not even a thank you for writing. Too bad this individual and this body are more interested with the concerns of wealthy developers than the working class of this community. Nunc vado ad requiem.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Is there anyone else here to speak to any item not on tonight's agenda? All right, hearing none, we'll come for wrap before we move to executive session and adjournment. Just a couple of quick notes. As referenced earlier in the context of some of the agenda items, my draft of the budget has been delivered to the commission, and so that's available for viewing by anybody at accgov.com. Retains the existing millage rate with a small number of new initiatives and enhanced capital projects in particular, given the uncertainty about the economy. I do want to note there are a couple of other things that I'd ask the public to look at accgov.com. One is a housing survey that's open through the very end of May, and another is a survey about the potential East Side Library locations. And then lastly, I do want to refer the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program for any updates that the body would like to consider over in the Legislative Review Committee. So I'm going to move to the manager. Any updates tonight, Manager Williams?
No, sir.
Attorney Drake, any updates tonight?
No.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and we'll go in reverse order for commission input. We'll begin with Commissioner Hamby and end with Commissioner Davenport.
Thank you. Thank you. It's about time I go first. I'm just joking. No, I appreciate it. It was a good meeting tonight, and we covered a lot of good substantial stuff. And I will say this, when we talk about transparency and whatnot, I can remember the day when the cameras first started on the commission. I wasn't on the commission then, but I think Commissioner Gertz may remember, or Mayor Gertz may remember that. And I think when we do that, we can always look for ways to be more transparent. We should. I think that does help us do our job better, but also help with citizens be more engaged. I can think of a lot of times where we ask citizens to apply to boards and authorities, and we struggle getting those applications in. So, but certainly, if we are more, and I'm just saying this, I know we're doing some things to be transparent, but we can always be better. So I think some of the points made tonight in this document are helpful, and I think moving forward, we ought to keep that in mind as we look at budget and our process. And I know staff has been televising a lot of government committee meetings, and LRC and government ops are all televised, so that's a good move in the right direction. One of the things that we could think about, though, in doing is, I've noticed this myself, when you go to want to look at one of the items that is being televised, everybody has their agenda, but perhaps if we start asking our boards and authorities to put any supplemental materials that they're giving out to the members at the board and authority meetings, that might be helpful to be put online as well. Like we do our commission agenda reports. I know it might take some work to get that going, and some more direction from this body, not just me, but having those supplemental materials that are handed out at meetings are very helpful. I know Planning Commission does it, we do it, and Historic Preservation, but some of the others, just to keep an eye on.
We'll need to coordinate with Clerk Spratlin on that.
Yeah, and I don't, so anyway, that's all I got for tonight. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to say this was a great meeting tonight. Considering my plans didn't go as planned, but it was a great meeting. I want to first report that the Faith-Based Housing Conference is on video or getting edited to be on video, and it will be sent to all the commissioners and the manager's office. We want to thank the mayor and staff that were able to attend. It was some good information, and I think that it might be useful as we address housing in the future. I think that I would like to make sure that I reach out to my constituents to ask them to complete the housing survey by the end of the month. We have a good list. I talked to Commissioner Taylor from her meeting and my meeting. We have a start of a nice database, so we're going to start combining our meetings so we can at least reach out to those people who have taken time to come out, even if it's an area that they're not interested. I didn't tell her all of that, but that was my point. And last week, we had an environmental issue meeting on Pittard Road. I want to thank County Manager Williams and Attorney Drake and staff for coming out and sharing information they've gathered. We also got new news that some of us were not aware of. We will be following up with the new news to still address this. I'm putting it out there now because this environmental issue is not going to go away without some honest and without some more information. I'm not going to say honest. Dr. Tawana Maddox has taken on leadership in the community, and I think one of the other things about this meeting, it was a lot of information, very objective, personal feelings, people vented, but it also was emotional because there were people there that talked about their cancer experience when DuPont was there, and Dr. Maddox's sister lost her life due to lung cancer. This video is already on YouTube. You can go to New Grove Baptist Church, Winterville, if you're interested in seeing that information, but that is already uplifted. And the last thing I want to bring up is we're still dealing with these shootings, and the shootings are becoming so regular that I think it's almost like the norm. We don't get upset no more. We don't get, scared no more. It's like, and it's not just in Athens, so please know I'm not just talking about, I'm talking about across the country. I know that the Twin Angels and others are planning some anti-violence, gang violence activities, but I would like to take the draft of the anti-gang resolution that you drafted, Mayor, and tweak it based on our upcoming meetings with our retreat and our budget. I want to reach out specifically and work with Commissioner Taylor, Commissioner Fisher and Commissioner Houle. It seems that those are the areas that are being most affected with these gangs, or with these shootings. And I think that if we don't say anything, it's almost like we don't care. And the other thing, I don't think resolutions should be even considered if there is not some type of action plan or monetary something to make it work. Just words on the paper is not going to make it go away. So I am looking forward, and again, I have not asked Commissioner Taylor, Fisher, or Houle, but I know that they're concerned about this issue just as much as I am. I think this was one of Commissioner Fisher's first endeavors when he came over on board. But I do know when I look at the maps of the shootings, they're in our districts, and we need to address those. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Manager Williams.
Yes, I'd like to respond to one of Commissioner Thornton's points. And with regards to the veracity of information that has been gathered for the old DuPont site, I want to clarify staff's role. We were asked to look into this. None of the documents that have been accumulated, compiled, and shared were developed by staff. The local government has no regulatory authority over this. This happened on private property. Staff is merely conveying the documents of record and putting those out there for transparency's sake. So any questions about the accuracy of the information is not staff generated.
And it may be helpful just functionally to engage with those regulatory authorities on the federal and state level that do have authority over this.
Again, I did not say that you did, and I don't even know why you went there. It was a compliment to you coming and sharing. If every time I say something that you're taking it like I'm criticizing staff or questioning staff, we're not going to get nowhere. I did say there was new information in your information. I didn't say one was right and one was wrong. I did say there would be follow-up, and I was preparing our colleagues. So please, I thought it was a good report I just gave without your commentary.
Well, you just mentioned that honest, and so
I corrected it. I said I did not mean to say honest. I corrected in the middle of the sentence.
Well, and Commissioner, that wasn't
Okay.
taking you on. It's just that I think there was questioning even at the meeting about our role in this, and we're acting at the behest of the commission, and at this point, we've just accumulated documents and shared them.
Okay.
So that's all. Just want to clarify that.
Thank you, Manager Williams.
We'll engage with some of those outside partners. Commissioner Myers, you still going?
Yeah, I'm still here. Really glad to be able to share a few words. Again, haven't been able to hear everyone that clearly, but do want to share my concern with the gang activity and the shootings and the violence that Commissioner Thornton referred to. I know these are serious issues over here in Commissioner Davenport in my district, and Commissioner Taylor's, where they all butt up together here on the east side with certain neighborhoods. So I think this is really a community-wide issue that all of us are really concerned about. On a more positive note, what's most important here and a positive thing moving forward on the east side is the upcoming siting of the East Side Library. And I do want to invite everyone who's listening to this and my fellow commissioners to the public information sessions where we're going to be taking input, the site selection committee, this Saturday from 2 to 4 at the Athens-Clarke County Library. Then next Thursday, May 11th, from 12 to 2 at Fire Station 7 by the vet school. And also on Thursday, May 11th, from 5 to 7 at the East Athens Development Corporation. There's also a very informative online public access story map that's available for everyone through May 21st, and I hope we can get as much public input on that as possible. And that's all. I look forward to seeing my fellow commissioners on Thursday at our retreat. COVID finally got me after 3 years, but I'm doing quite well and look forward to being back in person because this audio communication presence isn't my favorite activity. So see you all Thursday.
Thanks. Wish you a rapid recovery, Commissioner.
Yes, just a couple of things. I'd like to reiterate what the previous commissioner said about the crime. And I look forward to coming up with some action items and coming up with a plan on Thursday where we can tackle this sooner than later. I think it's an approach that we have to take across all fronts with youth development, workforce development, and gang prevention. But I look forward to getting some plans together for that. And I'd also like to apologize to the last gentleman that spoke, Mr. Barnes, for not following up with him. I am new to this and not the best at following up with my emails, and I will make a point to reach out to him tomorrow. But I do want to publicly apologize for not following up with him about that.
Thank you, Mayor. A few things. First, I do want to, I always really appreciate it when public commenters stick around all the way through our meeting to share with us their thoughts. They are often very well-formed and informative. I would like to ask the attorney to review the draft resolution we were submitted. I really appreciate it when people go through the work of giving us something, but just getting some feedback on that from the attorney's office would be helpful. In my perusing it at a glance, there were things I already have questions on. I'm sure colleagues will as well, but there are elements of it that I find pretty compelling at a glance. I also, the public commentary spoke to the budget. I agreed with a lot of that, but I was especially curious if staff might be able to provide some kind of base level context on the coroner's salary and how that compares to other coroners. Just, it's the first I've heard that raised up, so any information we could get in advance of our budget discussions would be helpful.
I believe the mayor's budget does include an increase for that salary.
It does,
Okay.
a significant one.
I just picked up my binder today, so I'll be going through that diligently with my Post-its. I really want to thank colleagues' remarks so far, but Commissioner Thornton, I'm happy to work in whatever group, subcommittee you want to form on gang and gun violence or whatever project that is super important. I'd be very happy to lend my efforts toward that. And perhaps that can begin with our retreat this Thursday for members of the public, for their edification. It's 1 to 4 p.m. in the Bobby Snipes Water Resource Center. We'll be talking all about that American Rescue Plan Act money that we haven't spent yet in a few big arenas, including homelessness and youth development and violence prevention. And I really want to emphasize that youth development and violence prevention are married there, so that's a good place for us to start. Last two things, got a town hall coming up on Monday, May 22nd. It'll be at the Cooperative Extension, where it's been every month lately, from 6 to 8 p.m. It's Talkin' Trash in West Athens, and it'll be with our solid waste staff, so I'm excited for that. And the next District 6 community cleanup will be Sunday, June 4th at 4 p.m. with a location to be determined that I'll circulate between now and then. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, great meeting, and we're almost under 2 hours, so that's pretty good. Although I know we're going to executive session. Couple things. First of all, thank you for inviting us to the prayer breakfast this Thursday at 7:30. I'm looking forward to that. And in District 5, this weekend, if you all not doing anything, the Westwood Hills and the River Bottom neighborhood will be having a block party from 5 to 8. Address is 240 Austin Drive, which is a cul-de-sac, but we'll get all that community together and have a good time. Hamburgers, hot dogs, and food will be served. I will be there representing District 5. So if the other commissioners not doing anything and want to join us this Saturday from 5 to 8, we welcome you here. And again, and just to follow up, and unfortunate, the shooting did happen in my district, and that second one down my district right before I came on, and then this one, and I will be meeting with the owner, and maybe I can help him with some safety things and security things that we can look at going forward. But again, it's unfortunate, and we just have it's an epidemic in this country, with all the shootings and stuff, and unfortunate, there's more black and brown people who are dying. And again, I think what we got to do is really be intentional. And again, like Commissioner Thornton said, we can get so numb to this thing and don't, ignore it. But as a community, Athens, we can lead the way. But again, we got to do it the right way, and we got to be intentional. And we got to put our money where our mouth is. If money is going to be some of the things, avenues we're going to use, but we got to be intentional about doing the things that we really want to help reduce violence in our community. So
Sounds like Dexter Fisher's having a Kentucky Derby Day party. That's Saturday is, anyway. I wanted to share some of the insights. Well, first of all, my concerns with the gun violence that's happening everywhere, but when it's in our community, we as leaders are, need to not be numb to it and get ourselves some action. I can tell you there are things that community members can do if we would encourage people to see something. When they see something, say something. We also have surveillance cameras all over the community. People have them in their doors. If you go on the ACCPD website, you can register the surveillance camera that you have at your home or your business. They're not going to see what's on it, but they'll know if there's an incident in that area that they can contact you and get permission to see what you might have had show up that's going to help them. I did my Community Police Academy ride-along on Friday. Before lunch, a gentleman who shouldn't have had a gun, his gun and his 2 bullets were no longer on the street. There were other incidents and accidents that we covered in that 12 hours, and the cameras were used in so many of them. It was impressive. It was helpful. The person with the gun, somebody had called 911 because they saw how they were acting with it. It is helpful. The police, they're called peace officers. They're here, but the community needs to also help and give information for them to put together with their network that happens with these 12-hour shifts so that they can help keep our community safe. And I believe that there were surveillance cameras at the incident at the U-Haul place that was helpful with this. So one of the accidents we checked in on, the business's cameras weren't working. So let's if you have a business, let's get your camera working. Our cameras should be working on our right-of-ways so that we can do what we can and encourage people to call in when they see something or hear people talking about doing things in that. So anyway, that's all I've got.
Thank you.
Well, I would like to say thank you, Mayor, and to staff for all of your great hard work that you do for us. I will try not to put more on you than you can bear. I go. I'm just playing. But I am having a family day this Sunday at 585 Vine Street, which is the Iron Triangle, and it is our first annual family day. We have great activities and carnival rides for the youth within all of Athens, not just District 3. And so everyone, which camera am I on? All of you. So everyone is invited. Also, it is very heartbreaking every time we find out that we have lost a young person to gun violence. I think that because we are the local government, we have to do things strategically, and I think that maybe looking at policies that we can get some relief, because I am so full from seeing grieving moms who have lost their sons to gun violence. So, yeah, great work, everyone.
Thank you.
I want to address the gun violence too, because it's everywhere. It's not just in Athens, it's everywhere. It hit very, very close to my own family 2 weeks ago when a gunfight broke out across the street in front of my sister's house in Chattanooga. A bullet went through a porch post 5 feet outside my 3-year-old sleeping niece's bedroom. And that porch post slowed it down enough so that it didn't actually go through both panes of the living room window where my brother-in-law was sitting. My sister was a block and a half up the street, having just left my parents' house to walk home. If she had left 30 seconds earlier, she would have walked into the middle of it. It's everywhere. And it's gun violence, and it begins with guns. And it's much more prevalent in states where legislators have lax gun laws. We need to approach our state legislators and demand that they repeal these open carry laws and assault weapon laws and allowing any maniac to get their hands on a gun. Because quite frankly, our police can't even approach some folks who are carrying a gun because it's perfectly legal for them to be carrying a gun. So we need to demand that our state legislators step up to the plate because children are collateral damage in their homage to the NRA and whatever bizarre death cult that they are a member of. So it's on us. You know, maybe we do need to get these guns off the street with a buyback program. Maybe that's where some of our ARPA money can go to. People are critical of how we spend that money. Well, maybe we can save at least a couple lives with a gun buyback program. But a huge number of the guns that are used in these incidents are stolen guns, guns that are stolen from people who do have them legally. More guns means more gun violence. So we need to make sure that our state legislators hear us loud and clear and repeal these obscene laws that allow anybody and everybody to get their hands on a weapon that can cause death and mass destruction.
Yes, when we begin the discussion this Thursday on gun violence and youth violence, just make sure that we include some of our community partners like churches, school board, civic leaders as well, because it's not just the government's problem, it's a community problem. Thank you, Mayor, for the budget. I look forward to trying to read it all before Thursday. Happy Mother's Day to all the lovely mothers. If all the constituent residents, please go to accgov.com. There's a housing survey, there's an Eastside Library input, information, and Judicial Center input. So please take those surveys and please attend those events. But you can go to accgov.com for more information. I would like to thank staff and those involved with the Dunlap and Pitter Road environmental meetings. I look forward for next steps. And for the residents on the Athens Fairgrounds, I do apologize for the noise. I promise you I'm working on it. We do have to follow a due process. But if anyone is having concerns, please call the the police non-emergency phone line, and motion to adjourn.
Could we have a motion to move into executive session and
Motion to
adjourn
remove-
upon conclusion of executive session?
Motion to move into executive session and adjourn the regular session.
And adjourn upon conclusion of the executive session.
And to adjourn upon the conclusion of executive session.
Just to clarify, that's to discuss personnel, Mr. Mayor.
To discuss personnel.
To discuss personnel.
Is there a second? I've got a motion from Commissioner Davenport to enter executive session to discuss personnel and to adjourn upon its conclusion. And a second from Commissioner Taylor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, and would folks like just a quick restroom break?
Yes,
All right,
please.
so let's take 5 minutes, and then I guess I'll just need Attorney Drake and the clerk, and everybody else can have a beautiful evening.